Hello everyone, day 3, the Volvo Ocean Race, leg 2 from Lisbon down to Cape Town. We still got some pretty rough seas, but it's about to end. I wanted to wait till sunrise. It's almost sunrise, a couple more hours, but I decided not to wait. I'll just do the stream now. You can kind of see how the last few days the fleet has spread out here. And we're still in the middle. Nothing's changed. I mean, we've been in the middle of this fleet for, since the start back here in Lisbon. And still a few guys back here. I'm not sure if they're in this race. The Vendée Globe started back here too, or up here. Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are far back in this race. And we got some tactics coming up as far as we've past the Canary Islands. Cape Verde is next, and kind of studying weather maps, weather models right now, trying to figure out what's going to be best. We still got a good amount of wind. We're still 20 plus knots of wind right now, but that's about to go away. As we get closer to the doldrums down here, probably off the coast of, I don't know, right here is usually where the doldrums are, closer to the equator. But spent the last few hours studying, let me get off that, studying weather maps for the next few days. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you can go east or west and nobody really knows which way it's going to pay off. What we do know so far is everybody, if you saw my last video, there was a lot of people that were going down towards the Canary Islands here, and they thought that was a good idea somehow. I don't really understand the logic behind that, but usually when you're offshore racing, you stay the hell away from land. And so all these guys are down here that are leading the race right now. The leaderboard doesn't mean anything. All these guys that are on the leaderboard right now in the top 10, they're only doing about 1 knot, 2 knot, 3 knot, 4 knots. They're not doing anything. They're in this big hole of no wind on the south side of the Canary Islands that they put themselves into, and I don't really know why they went over there, because there's, the rest of us we were all heading out west. As you can see, yesterday we made this big sharp turn and ended up coming out here towards the west. And the leaderboard doesn't mean anything because there's this, it's a point A to point B type of race, and this green line right here, it's measuring whoever's closest to that green line, and obviously we can't sail through the heart of Africa, so the leaderboard doesn't mean anything. I mean, this thing is showing that I am in 35th right now, but if you think about it, you look at where I'm at, and technically I'm probably in the top 10, but it's still a long race to go. We're not even at the halfway mark yet, so we'll see what happens. But all these guys lost out over here that went sailed through the islands over here. They're not really moving right now. They're kind of stuck. I think they're all going to get passed by this large crowd right here that I'm involved with. We still got Sol over here leading the pack. Disco Infidel. Peter's done pretty well, and Kevin is always up there. There's a lot of newcomers over here. I won't go through everybody, but yeah, it's pretty much a drag race right now with all of us that went over towards the west out to sea. And just kind of waiting to see what happens with the weather. I want to head over towards the west to Cape Verde. I don't want anything to do with being inshore towards Dakar here. The doldrums usually come right off of here. But that's the plan, is to come down here towards Cape Verde and just head south, because if you look at the weather maps here, I've kind of planned this out for the next few days, but we're right about here, in between 1 and 2 that I marked. And so we still got wind. We still got a good 20 knots of wind, like I said, but we have this gigantic hole of blue right here, you can see. And that's where, if you come back over here, all the guys I was just talking about that sailed into this giant hole, that, for some reason they thought it was a good idea to go down through these islands. All these guys right here are losing out big time because they're in this huge hole. And for them to get back into any kind of wind is going to take a while. However, looking at it from a technical aspect, this hole is actually going to be shifting west. If you look forward here, this is roughly the time right now that I'm recording this. If we go forward, you'll see this starting to shift out towards the west. Yeah, you can see it jump there very slowly, but you know, this is Thursday. So just by looking for the next day here, you know, technically you should be like, or as far as any strategy, you should be thinking, well, I should go out west to stay away from this thing. But if you follow it, this is just Thursday. It starts filling in again on the east come Friday. Very good, actually. This is very good wind predicted. And so through Friday, this hole is out here towards the west, where all these guys are going to be sailing through. Where are they? There they are. So Thursday, I see it like this. I've decided to go south from point 2 there to 3. I want to go west of Cape Verde. So tomorrow, Thursday, is going to be very slow for us. I think we're going to sail into this hole on purpose because you're either going to have to go through it now, or you're going to get caught in it on Friday. And if you think about it, I'd rather punch my way through it and spend one day with a little bit of lighter air, and then have it fill back in again, instead of spending a whole extra day going out farther west, hundreds of miles, to get caught in it anyway. You know, so that's strategically, that's how I'm looking at it. And so come Friday, I predict that we'll be in this area here, maybe just northwest of Cape Verde. But yeah, you can see it starting to fill in a little bit more. Come Saturday, this hole that is shifted is pretty much out of our way, out of our path. And then we have to deal with the doldrums. But if you look at this, there's usually no air in here whatsoever. Like if I go, yeah, you can see this big blue patch right here. We don't want anything to do with that. But luckily that's filling in too. Let's fast forward to Friday, that's starting to fill in a little bit. Saturday, I expect to be down here by Saturday, Sunday, maybe even Monday, depending on the conditions and how quickly it takes us to get down here. So this is my plan so far, is to just get down west of Cape Verde as fast as possible. Get out to sea a little bit more, which is what I have mapped out here. And then as long as we're there Saturday, Sunday, you can see this wind here has just filled in the doldrums. Monday it starts to lighten up. Tuesday it starts to lighten up even more, and Wednesday you don't want to be there because there's zero wind whatsoever this whole area that I'm kind of going through with my mouse. So if we're by this Mark 6 by Sunday, we'll be in good shape, because I'm just going to dive straight south, and it'll be on a reach, it looks like, by the wind pattern. And then it'll be a whole new ball game that we're going to have to, that's all I've come up with so far. I kind of put myself 4 or 5 days out ahead of time as far as strategy, and I adjust it depending on any changes. But that's as far as I'm going so far, and if anything changes, obviously we'll make adjustments. But come probably Saturday, we'll start planning out, looking at the weather models and start planning out how we're going to make this turn southeast towards Cape Town, and how we're going to navigate this area here. For the most part, it looks like the wind patterns with the trade winds, it is going to be beating, so it's going to take us quite a deal of time to get down here. Typically there's no air on the coastline through here, and there's also a hole forming right here that looks like it's going to shift to the north, so it'll be interesting, in a week's time, when we're beating our way towards Cape Town, what actually happens and where the rest of the fleet is. But if we look at the real Volvo Ocean Racing fleet here, they're doing the same thing that I'm doing. We're just making our way south. These boats are a little bit faster than me, so they're actually trying to outrun this hole before it shifts to the west. Where I am about right here, and we're just going to sail through it. We're going to sail through it, be that as it may, have it shift through us, and then hopefully be right around here come the weekend, and then we can while the doldrums fill in, with some air. You know, there's a thin channel of air right here through the doldrums, but this is supposed to fill in even more, and then we'll be able to punch our way through there. So luckily it looks pretty promising as far as the doldrums. It doesn't look like we're going to be drifting around for a week trying to get all the way through here. You know, the gods are on our side. It looks like it's going to fill in with some air and we'll be able to sail right through it. But we'll see what happens. That's where it lays right now as far as strategy. I'm kind of just hanging around mid-pack right now and watching everybody else. And it was a very difficult decision to make, you know, whether, you know, go out farther towards the west or just punch right through this hole that's pretty much in this area here. But you got to think on a long-term basis, and you know, you can't win the race in one day on a leg like this. And to be doing as good as we are so far, from starting way up here in Lisbon, we still have a awful long way to go. I mean, we got to get our way through the doldrums and all the way down this Cape Town. But that's why you got to think long-term, strategically. You know, you look at the weather models and you think, well, how do I get from here to there is, you know, quicker than anybody else? It's really difficult decisions to make sometimes, but I'm confident that what I'm doing is the best move, but you know, things can change in a minute. So we'll see what happens. But we've had really good boat speed all day. We've been hanging around 14, 15 knots average. I topped out at about 19.5 about an hour ago. It was very nice. I didn't have my spinnaker up at that time. I just had, we had some really gusty winds, and I had my main unreefed, and I had the jib out. You know, we still, a similar sailing angle to what we're on now. I hit 19.5, and that was really nice. But yeah, still pretty rough seas. It's going to start leveling out pretty quickly once we get farther south. It's, you know, the wind, once we sail into this hole, you know, you'd never think you'd say that you'd sail into a hole on purpose, but you know, like I said, with the way the strategy is playing out right now in this race, it's pretty interesting. So if we go, let's rewind back to roughly around this time. Yeah, you can see how right now the doldrums are pretty much, there's a lot of light air in there. But if we made the sacrifice and tried to avoid this hole and went way out west, it's just going to shift and catch up with us anyway when we try to dive south. So I feel like it's more worth it for me to just go into it, let it shift out of my way. This area is going to fill in again, and then I'll be able to just come down here and follow the course that I want to sail. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, so far the weather models are showing that that's probably the best move, but as far as these guys that are trapped over here south of the Canary Islands, they don't have any air right now. Yeah. They're kind of screwed. I mean, this just gets worse as they get farther to the southwest. And as we go into Thursday, it starts to fill in a little bit, especially later on in Thursday, and I think that's going to be their only... They're going to lose a day, pretty much, all these guys that went into the islands over here. Unfortunately, it looks like Bionic went over there. Dave, Helper Boat, Storm Petrol, Chris Sailability. These guys were leading us down here. So I'm surprised they went this far. But yeah, they're not going to get any wind for at least 24 hours. According to these charts, at least. And then by Friday, they're going to have really strong winds pushing them out of that area. But you never know. By that point in time, when they get these strong winds, they can come downwind away from the coast. We're going to already be down by Cape Verde, so who knows if that will pay off for them or not. We'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of, I mean, there's going to be a larger split in the fleet than there already is. And strategically, I mean, there's people going all over the map right now, trying to figure out what to do. I think Saul's doing pretty well. He's trying to outrun this hole over here that's going to shift towards him. He might get caught up in it just like we will. We're not that far off of him. I know. Looks like Disco Infidel is turning west to try and get away from that, but I think the majority of us have decided that just getting as far south as we can right now is probably the best bet. Getting a little overpowered here. The wind just picked up to about 26 knots. So as predicted, we've had, this is day 3, almost day 4. We've had that many days. They said in the Volvo Ocean Race we're going to have strong downwind conditions, and we've had just that. And I think the little bit of calm weather that's coming ahead of us is kind of a welcoming in a way. We can kind of rearrange ourselves a little bit. As long as the air isn't too light, we'll be able to sail a little bit more comfortably than we have been. I mean, even today these are slightly less rough conditions than what we have had the last few days. Yeah, curious though. I mean, it looks like the next few hours, as far as side to side, I'm going to be passing these guys, most of these guys that went out towards the Canary Islands here. Yeah, they got a long way to catch up. And they're all, it looks like most of them were trying to come out this way, but a lot of them are just trapped. I'm wondering about some of these guys that are going well in the shore here. Yeah, hopefully they're paying attention, they don't run aground, but I don't know. You see, all of these guys don't have any speed right now. They're all under 5 knots. But as far as a race like this, where it's measuring how close you are to the green line instead of some sort of more accurate measurement, this leaderboard, it means absolutely nothing until we actually cross the finish line. It's nice to kind of look at it and see who's still racing, what kind of speeds they got. We got 76 boats. I mean, that's a lot more than we had in the last leg. All these guys are still racing. But yeah, as far as the leaderboard itself on positions, it doesn't mean anything. Until we cross the finish line, it's not accurate. Wind just dropped off, so let me unreef this a little bit. Get our boat speed back up. Yeah, not a lot going on right now. Just kind of in a drag race with all this line of guys right here that are heading roughly in the same direction I am. And figuratively, I mean, when you look at it, when I took this western turn right here, I was in about 9th place, 10th place, but like I said, it doesn't mean anything. So I lost a lot of ground coming out this way when everybody else continued to sail south. But like I said, all these guys over here, they're gonna have to come out to the come out to us. So very hard to tell who's actually doing good and who's doing poorly at the moment, because it's anybody's game. I mean, this guy back here could win the race for all we know. Yeah, it doesn't really, you know, it's not really obvious what's going to happen. Yep, I'm overpowered. There we go. It's anybody's race. We still have a ton of distance to cover. I mean, this is going to be the long haul right here, this entire section. I mean, especially if it's upwind conditions, it's going to take a couple weeks. Well, it's going to take more than a week, that's for sure. But if we're down in here by next Thursday, yeah. That wind is pretty much just coming off the point towards us, so that's going to be interesting. Friday. I hope that we're through here by Friday, because it looks pretty light conditions through here. But I think I want to stay pretty much in this middle area right here. If I drew a line from this mark number 7 that I drew on here down to Cape Town, this is where I want to pretty much just beat my way through here. But we'll see. Conditions are probably going to be a lot different than what this forecast is. You know, this is obviously a week out, so things can change. That's pretty much it for day 3, though. I'll probably be on for some sort of a day 4 update tomorrow, and see if any major changes happen as far as the weather or positions. We might have a lot lighter conditions tomorrow as far as the wind. And speaking of which, the wind's kind of dying off a little bit right now. But anyway, we're just trying to hold our ground right now, keep it in the middle of the pack, and like I said, all these guys out towards the east of us have pretty much sailed themselves right into a dead zone, and there's a lot of distance to cover, so we're just trying to stay on top of the strategic game right at the moment.